Because of Bill McKibben, the numbers 350 are indelibly embedded in our collective consciousness as a threshold we should never have crossed, and now to which we must work our way back down. Bill has helped build awareness of our predicament to a critical mass around the globe, and he has helped us realize that we now must urgently move from awareness raising to commitment, followed by rigorous action, beginning locally.
I'm going to do my best to end up in a kind of hopeful and optimistic place. But I am by nature, my sort of profession is a kind of, I'm sort of a professional bummer-outer of people, you know. So we're going to have to deal with that for a little while, because there's no use not. We need to figure out just where we are in order to figure out where we need to go. I wrote the first book about climate change 21 years ago this year, The End of Nature. At the time, we knew most of what we needed to know. You know, we knew that human beings were emitting large amounts of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere every time we burned coal and gas and oil. We knew that the molecular structure of CO2 trapped heat near the planet that would otherwise radiate back out to space. The only thing we really didn't know at that point was exactly how fast it was going to pinch. How long it was going to take before we were in real trouble, where the red line was. And being human, of course, our hope was that it was some ways off in the distance, because then it would be somebody else's problem, you know. Pretty much every physical feature of the planet that you look at is in that kind of chaotic change, you know. So, because warm air holds more water vapor than cold, there's about 5% more moisture up in the atmosphere. That's an astonishing change in a basic physical feature of the Earth, and it means that in arid areas we're getting more evaporation and hence more drought. Even more dramatically, it means that in places that are wet, we're getting deluges and downpours like we've never seen before. Even things that we thought 20 years ago were too vast to be materially affected are changing. No one had even really bothered to measure the chemistry of the ocean because it hadn't occurred to anyone that it would be changing. 5 or 6 years ago, when people began doing it, they found that as seawater absorbed carbon from the atmosphere, its pH was dropping, and dropping fast. The ocean's about 30% more acid. We already think that it's interfering with the ability of organisms at the bottom of the marine food chain to do their thing. Okay? These are astonishing changes. It's why I called this book with this odd title, Earth with an extra A. Someone asked me today how to pronounce it, and I said you kind of have to do a sort of channel Arnold Schwarzenegger. It's sort of Earth, you know, is the pronunciation. But the point is that it's already a different planet. And on that new planet, we're going to have to learn some new habits about how to succeed, or how at least to persist, you know, because it's not going to be as easy. If there really was, as people have said over and over again for the last decade, a flat Earth where things were beginning to move with frictionless ease hither and yon, those days are past. Now, more and more with each passing year, we're an uphill planet where the kind of extra friction that comes with that environmental degradation, we're going to have to figure out how to live on a planet where we're not turning to growth as the answer to every question. And that's going to be very difficult. Growth has been our, you know, the one bipartisan fixation of our political system and everybody else's for a long time, because it allows us to avoid making hard choices. When you melt the Arctic, that is not a good sign, okay? And so we're going to have to learn some slightly different habits, and they begin almost with the way we imagine things. Our time has been marked by ever-increasing speed. paddle wheeler to locomotive to airplane to rocket, Model T to Formula One. Can you imagine slower? Our time has been marked by great ups and downs, booms with the occasional bust. Can you imagine steadiness? Can you make it work in your mind? Most of all, of course, our time has been the time of bigness, the amazing, ever-steepening upward curve where things grew and then grew some more. Economies and road networks and houses, inflating until there were entire subdivisions filled with starter castles for entry-level monarchs. So we were both horrified and elated in January of 2008 when Jim Hansen and his team at NASA produced this crucial scientific paper. It, for the first time, put a number on our peril. They said, we now know enough. Looking at things like the rapid melt of Arctic ice and looking at these reams of paleoclimatic data that we've collected from ice cores and things, we now know enough to say what the number is. And that number, the most important number in the world, is 350. In fact, in the abstract of the paper, they put it like this: any value for carbon in the atmosphere greater than 350 parts per million is not compatible with the planet on which civilization developed or to which life on Earth is adapted. That's stern language for scientists to use. Sterner still when you know that we're already well past it. When we walk outside tonight, the atmosphere we breathe will be 390 parts per million CO2 and rising about 2 parts per million per year. That's why the ocean is acidifying. That's why ice is melting. Not a problem for our grandchildren, a problem, a crisis right now. Right now. This question of how to do political organizing on the scale we need is not something that anybody, including me, really knows the answer to. And so I'm basically just going to tell you a few stories for a few minutes about how I've spent my last couple of years. And one of the points of those stories is going to be, if someone as clueless as I am about all this can do it, then there is no excuse for anybody else not, all right? There are scientists and good scientists who think we have waited too long to get started, that the momentum of this heating has already reached a kind of a threshold past which it's not really reversible in meaningful ways. You know, the best science, the consensus science, is that we still have not a way to stop global warming. It's too late for that. We've raised the temperature 1 degree, there's another degree in the pipeline, but maybe still time with dramatic action to keep it from spinning entirely out of control into a real civilization challenging chaos, but no guarantee. And there are political scientists who think that this is just an impossible task, that the combination of inertia and vested interest is just too strong, that the oil industry is just too rich, that it just can't be done. If you were a betting person, you might be well advised to take that bet. But I gotta say, it strikes me that this is a bet we are not allowed to make. Just not allowed to make. That the moral obligation on anyone who's alive and conscious at the moment when the greatest problem that humans have ever faced is bearing down on them, the moral obligation is to do every damn thing you can to change those odds at least a little bit. And so I offer no guarantee that we're going to win, but I offer you the absolute guarantee and the absolute promise that we will fight as hard as ever we can. And it is a great privilege and an honor to be in a room full of people who are already fighting that fight and to be your colleagues and comrades in that fight. Thank you for it, and thank you for coming tonight and listening. Thank you.